And welcome back to, that was so inelegant, the Late Night Lately, the Late Night Show. I'm your host, Chad White. If you didn't know, this is the late night styled show for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. I spent all of the theme song trying to turn down the TV. But you're going to be hearing golf as I record this. Hey, listen, I have a monologue for you, so let's get right to it. Spirit Airlines shut down this week, and budget-conscious travelers are forced to take on other options of transportation. It's a slingshot at a paper airplane if you're not watching the video. The supposed Jeffrey Epstein suicide note was released, and based on the handwriting, it looks like old Eppy enjoyed playing doctor with the girls he brought back to the island. Those scribbles are horrible. And everything else that happened on the island is horrible too. President Donald Trump revived the Presidential Physical Fitness Award, a yearly test for young kids to prove who's virile enough to drain blood from. Vivek Ramaswamy won the GOP nomination for governor in Ohio because as one Indian exits, the only other one is allowed back in. We can't have two. We can't have two inside of this administration. They're over there from someplace. The U.S. is set to review Mexican consulates after right-wing claims against them, which include, this guacamole is too spicy, and do you speak English? This guacamole is too spicy. And finally, the Rolling Stones announced their new album, Foreign Tongues, which is the thing Trump says is needed to enjoy Mexican food. What is this green slime and why is it so spicy? Do you speak English? It's so spicy. All right. That's all the jokes. Welcome back in. We have a doozy of an episode for you. There's no one else but me. Is it too low? I can barely hear myself inside of these inside of the cans that I'm wearing. I'm sorry. I'm still tired. I went to a concert on Wednesday and I just never recovered from the sleep. Although Garmin does say I am fully recovered. But it does say my body battery's at 37. All right. This week in late night, what happened? On The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. It's odd that it says starring Jimmy Fallon. That's what it is. The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Anyway. They really doubled down on re-releasing a previous interview with a previous guest who was big in he's from India. He's a huge star, but they just said, hey, let's put out this clip package of him. It's very fun. Anyway, he sat down with Robert Irwin. He got some ice cream with him. They played some games. Lisa Kudrow was there. He also interviewed Robert Irwin and also sat down with Stevie Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band and The Sopranos. No big deal. I saw Bruce Springsteen last week. There's a performance from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, a movie I hate, I despise. I remember, this had to be probably when I was in high school. But the movie was so popular, or like it was, as a boy in high school who was into watching movies and film and in cinema, who I'm sure if a Letterboxd was around, I would have a Letterboxd account. But now I just think it's for hipster white kids to prove that they're funny. I don't know. Anyway, I tried to watch Rocky Horror Picture Show. And it was so shitty. It was so bad. Oh, my gosh. And I had disdain for it. It was one of the first times where I was like, everybody's wrong about this. They continue to play the four-shot jackpot, which I don't think is a popular thing, but they continue to do it. Based on the views, it's definitely not. Justin Hartley sat down for an interview, who is also not popular. What's going on with the views on these videos? And then Walt Frazier sat down too, wearing the loudest jacket. I love it. Maddie Kelly did stand-up. Brendan Fraser showed up. Also, I watched The Mummy for the first time this week. So I'll be watching the other two at some point. Kate Mara was there. Truneo performed, or Truneo. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Jimmy also was at the Miami Grand Prix. He rode in a car with, or Kentucky Derby. Yeah, yeah. He races from the Miami Grand Prix to Kentucky Derby. Ronnie Wood sat down for an interview. Molly Gordon, Daniel Day Kim, and Kim Petras performed a song. So that's lovely to hear. And see, I like Kim Petras. Robin just put out a new record. It's very short. I love it. So did Muna. I listened to the Muna record this morning at the gym. Anyway, this week on Late Night with Seth Meyers, Nathan Lane was there. Noah Kahan was there. And I believe Noah Kahan is performing at SNL this weekend. Meg Stalter. See, this is the problem. I know Statler and Waldorf, and every time I see Meg Stalter's name, I just assume that she's related to the Muppet. He also did a late night White House briefing, and then Chris Hayes showed up for an interview. Caro Claire Burke was there, the author of the Trad Wife book, Yesteryear, which she was. I did just a quick aside on the Atlantic Radio Hour, I think that's what it's called, or Atlantic Podcast, whatever. They covered the Trad Wife phenomenon this week, and Caro Claire Burke was on there, and all I could think was, this is the whitest thing I've heard in my entire life. That and Looksmaxing. Maya Rudolph, Michael Gandolfini, Lisa Kudrow, and Nicholas Braun, and a bunch of closer look segments. And then for Jimmy Kimmel Live, Jimmy had it was a great week for him, for that young man. I think he might be off next week because there's a rumor that he and the rest of the late night hosts will be appearing on Colbert's show on the 11th. Anyway, this week he had on Jelly Roll a segment I skipped gladly. Nicole Byer, a segment I watched gladly. Isa Gonzalez, who gave a great interview. Isa is just so fun. And I watched a movie with Isa recently, and I don't know which one it was. Let's see, Isa Gonzalez. I have pizza sauce cooking, and I don't know why I'm just slowly going through this episode. I have time on it. What did I just watch? Not I Love Boosters. It was Mike and Nick and Alice. Yeah, it was a good movie. I enjoyed that. I also watched Fountain of Youth when it came out on Apple TV, and she was also in The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, a movie I saw in theaters, and I enjoyed it. Ambulance, I own Ambulance, and I enjoy that movie too. Ambulance is textbook Michael Bay. If you're into Michael Bay, then you're into that. Oh yeah, she was at Godzilla vs. Kong. There's one part of Godzilla vs. Kong, one B story, and it was a B story. It should have been an F story, if anything. But one B story in Godzilla vs. Kong that should not have existed. And it was Millie Bobby Brown's B story. I like Millie, but man, that should not have that ruined the movie. It slowed down and ruined the movie. John Mulaney also sat down for an interview. Steve Carell, Mike Tyson, the Avett Brothers, and Mike Patton performed. Social Distortion also performed. Sharon Stone and Katerina Balfe. You know, I just realized that I did a story about how Jimmy Kimmel Live is doing less music segments or music performances. And this week they had 2, and I wonder what they're transferring that extra time to. I assume it's going to be the interviews, but they already gave pretty long interviews before. This week on the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, I had to skip around the monologue between all the clapping, and Dave Grohl and Christopher Nolan gave interviews. Christopher Nolan's is 21 minutes long. And if you were watching that on YouTube TV as I do, it's nice to see that these longer interviews are happening, and you can come to YouTube. But this is no longer happening anymore. Foo Fighters also performed 2 songs from the new record. Let's see. Oh, there's an episode with Barack Obama. He had an entire episode to himself. People clapped during the interview as if he was live there, but he was not. They gave the final first drafts, Stephen Colbert and Evie. His wife, Sally Field, was also there. Chris Stapleton performed. John Krasinski sat down for an interview. And then there was a segment that I think was too long called Kids Pitch Late Night. And kids were trying to make their own late night show. Let's see. For The Daily Show, John returned to talk about the 60-day Iran deadline that he himself imposed, and King Charles's visit from last week. He also sat down with Sherilyn Ifill. Desi Lydic hosted the rest of the week, and she spoke to the overhyped Paul W. Downs about the overhyped Hacks final season. Marla Mindell, I'm burning so many bridges. Marla Mindell was there. There's also a Sports War segment. Troy Iwata celebrated 250 years of America by doing a Man on the Street segment. He's just so funny when I was watching the episode, and you come back from commercial break, and on YouTube TV, you skip over a little bit. Because it's not the best fast forwarding, but who cares? But you skip over a little bit, you see, it just made me laugh seeing him in a stupid Uncle Sam hat and a dumb blue blazer. It's very funny. And Desi also sat down with Adam Scott to talk about his new horror movie Hokum. And then Josh Johnson did a segment on the J.P. Morgan sex slave lawsuit. And then John Oliver covered gas station drugs on Last Week Tonight. And they've also been uploading segments that weren't already on the YouTube channel. Last Week Tonight is operating in the same way that Taskmaster is operating, in that you can pretty much watch almost everything on their YouTube channel. It's great that was offered on television. And I love that. I think it's fantastic. Okay, now let's get into the topics. This is something that was said in an aside, but it was, looks like Jamie Presley launches an OnlyFans. Huh. OnlyFans. All right. This comes from Variety, written by Ethan Shanfield. Netflix comedy Chiefs on Netflix is a joke fest. Louis C.K. backlash and the future of I Think You Should Leave, Everybody's Live, and more. Also, This is a late night podcast, but this is one of my biggest issues with Netflix, saying, defending their choices to bring in Louis C.K. and Andrew Scholes and Dave Chappelle and all these other people. It's that doesn't mean that you are brave or making a smart decision. These people never served their penances. They never were given their scarlet letters, and just because they have fans that will continue to support them doing dumb shit, saying horrible things or doing horrible things against women, doesn't mean that you are smart and cool and brave for allowing them to be on your platform. In fact, it makes your platform seem like it's kind of worthless if you're just going to allow everybody. Anyway, okay, so for Everybody's Live, this is because this is a late night podcast. What the hell? Everybody. I can't. Okay. For Everybody's Live, they were essentially, they gave almost a one-word answer on if that show was coming back. If you'll recall, Everybody's Live is the late night show that John Mulaney hosted. Once for Netflix as a joke fest 2 years ago, it was Everybody's Live in LA, the original iteration. They're both the same thing. But what it was a 5-day event where he would host an hour of a late night show every day for those 5 days. I believe it was like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. And it was great. It was so funny. It was very, when things broke, they broke. And it really is like a modern day version of Conan, who I miss dearly hosting TV shows. Real TV shows, not this Conan O'Brien must go. Anyway, so fast forward to a year later, they brought him back. Mulaney and Netflix did Everybody's Live. And it's just Everybody's Live with John Mulaney. And that was a wonderful late night show that went on for, I believe, 12 weeks. And they brought it in for 2 seasons. But the first season ended around this time last year. And then Mulaney was going to go on tour, and he was very cagey on if Netflix was going to bring the show back. He was like, "Yeah, I'm busy," and then Netflix was like, "Oh yeah, we're always going to keep a spot open for him," and then you never heard anything. And cut to this week, we have Ethan asking, "Is Mulaney going to do another season of Everybody's Live?" And the comedy chiefs said, "We don't think so. No, John is on a big tour. There's no talk of him doing that right now." So then I don't think it's a John thing. I think it's a Netflix thing. I think they never really gave him a solid answer. And also, I'll put 20% of the blame on John. Maybe he has 2 kids, and stand up is a passion, whereas this show was probably a dream project, and he did it, and it was hard, and maybe he wants to take some time off. But I don't think this show's going to come back. I loved Everybody's Live. It was so funny. Not to mention, it gave a lot of great writers jobs, like Fren Gillespie and Langston Kerman. They had good jobs. Anyway, now let's move on to this story. This comes from the New York Times, written by Jason Zinoman. What do we lose when the late show goes away? Jason Zinoman, is the I believe he might be the head TV critic for the New York Times. But last week we had an obituary, more or less, or a goodbye letter for the Late Show with Stephen Colbert. And now we have this excellent piece that was written by Jason. I read it. I skimmed over it earlier today, and it's just he gives a great chronicle of what the show was and what it's been, and what it's been for late night in general, like how late night has been in the past, compared to the past and compared to now. The pizza sauce is cooking so well. Oh, I can't wait. Okay. Arsenio Hall told Jason about the downfall of late night recently in an interview where Arsenio was talking about his memoir, but he said Arsenio told Zinoman that things always change, and that he'd prefer the Tonight Show be canceled than fade into irrelevance. Which is, yeah, I think that's a good call, but these shows aren't irrelevant right now. I think at some point they will be, but right now they're declining, but they're not fading, if that makes sense. Which I think those are two different things. If they were fading, then Jimmy Fallon's wouldn't be we wouldn't see clips of his show everywhere. Kimmel wouldn't be be threatened by the president all the time. Colbert's firing wouldn't be a big deal. It just none of this stuff. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Then Zinoman also, for this piece, he sat down with David Letterman, and he included, and I'll show you this article right now, David Letterman on The Late Show ending in CBS's new owners. He included this excerpt from the essay. He calls it an essay. I call it a piece. From the essay he wrote on the end of The Late Show. But let me finish up with this end of The Late Show thing. So The Late Show, we know, came from Letterman himself, because David Letterman and Jay Leno did not like each other. And I don't think, hold on. We'll get into that in a second. I'm sorry for getting ahead of myself. So Johnny Carson was going to be replaced as the head of Tonight Show, as the host of the Tonight Show. Then Leno got his job. Letterman left his show, and then which aired after the Tonight Show on NBC, and then he went to CBS. Then Stephen Colbert took over the job after Letterman decided to retire. Letterman put on what was called an anti-talk show, and Colbert had done something similar at the Comedy Central when he was on The Daily Show, when he did a spinoff, The Colbert Report. Like Letterman, Zinoman says, he reinvented a form by mastering the art of saying the opposite of what he meant. Oh, okay. So as time went on, Stephen Colbert's show became a much different beast than what it was when it initially started. Remember, he was show running that show when that began, and he was burning the candle at so many different ends. Then he started having on political guests in recent months, including these political guests. He had on James Tallarico, Elizabeth Warren, and of course, as of this week, Barack Obama. I looked at the date, and it's because Zinoman wrote May 5th here, and I was like, is it not May 5th? Oh no, May the 5th be with you. May the 8th be with you. Zinoman also recounts something that Colbert said in a GQ interview from a couple of months ago, which I think people need to keep in mind. Colbert said he was more conservative than people think, which is I think is true. He's still a devout Catholic. I believe he's a Catholic, and just because he's talking about the things against the president doesn't mean that he necessarily. And I believe, he is because he talks about that on the Conan's podcast. Doesn't just because he's saying things against the president doesn't mean that he doesn't have conservative ideals. He might be fiscally conservative. He might be based on the people he hires. I know he's racially conservative. I'm kidding. It was a joke. I still can't hear myself. Now, let's move on to this Letterman interview where he said something so very interesting that really stood out to me. They were talking about the difference between the Late Show and the Tonight Show, but now Zinoman asked Letterman this question: could you imagine having Jay as a guest on your Netflix show? My guest needs no introduction. If you don't know what that show is, it's Letterman's show that it's like maybe sometimes 2 episodes, sometimes 1 episode, sometimes 6 episodes, and he just talks to people he thinks are fascinating. Like Lizzo. John Mulaney was in an episode, and I believe John Mulaney's dad was also in that episode, and other celebrities who I can't seem to remember because I haven't seen all of them. And Barack Obama. I believe we talked to Barack Obama. Anyway, in response to whether or not Letterman would have Leno on his show, on the Netflix show, he said, "We think about it from time to time. This is not a bad idea. In answer to your question, of course I would love to. I'm sorry, did I say love? Of course I can imagine having Jay. I mean, when I was a kid, he was the funniest man in comedy. So just based on that alone, why wouldn't you?" Which is interesting because I believe a couple of months or earlier this year, I don't want to put a date on it, but I know it was within this calendar year. Somebody asked Conan. Oh no, it was Arsenio. Arsenio was on Conan's podcast and said, which again, I referenced Conan's podcast twice. I do not listen to that show. I only listen. I listened to the Arsenio episode, and I listened like this year. I've only listened to 2 episodes, I believe. Arsenio episode is something else because I just don't like. Never mind. Anyway, it's just not my type of show. But anyway, on the Arsenio episode, Arsenio came on and immediately apologized for not being like standing behind Conan with the whole Jay Leno situation, because Jay Leno essentially helped Arsenio with his career and everything. And then Conan said water under the bridge. He's like, he's no longer mad at Jay Leno, and he's like, or I don't know if he said he's no longer mad, but he said that's all water under the bridge. So anyway, I wonder, even though Leno is a Trumper now, but I wonder if this opens the door for some type of dialogue between the 3 men, especially because if you remember back when in that time where it was announced that Leno was going to come back to the Tonight Show, and Conan, or they moved Conan the Tonight Show to like 11:35 or whatever, because 11:45, because Leno's show was at wanted to be pushed back to the Tonight Show slot, and then Conan said he was going to leave, and Leno's going to take over the Tonight Show again. Not in that order. Leno's going to take over the Tonight Show, and Conan said he's going to leave. Everybody, like Letterman, was talking trash about Leno on his show, and Leno is like, it's just what happens in business, and then Conan was mad. It was all very interesting. Go watch Letterman's video, Don't Blame Conan, because that's what Leno said. Leno said, don't blame Conan. It's my fault that I'm taking over the Tonight Show. Anyway, it's a good piece of business. All right. So yeah, that's go read those two pieces. Zinoman is a smart guy, and I like what he said. Just like I like having this different angle on the obituary of the Late Show and late night in general, because it's a great all-encompassing thing that Stephen Colbert has done completely in late night. Also, Stephen Colbert is not just in late night. He was in he's one of my favorite shows that I love so much, Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. It's a fantastic show. There's also a Wii game and PlayStation 2, but I played on Wii. It's fantastic. And Strangers with Candy. That when I think people think of Stephen Colbert as a host, I think of him as Strangers with Candy and on Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. All right, anyway, I'm done. Listen, if you like what you heard, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where you can see everything, pretty much everything I've done, including a bunch of interviews with a bunch of celebrities. Check out the interviews on youtube.com/cpluscomedy, where you can also see a video version of this show, as well as the other podcasts, LinkedIn Logs, the Jobs and Business News podcast, as well as the Constitutionals, the Entertainment Business News Show. Subscribe to youtube.com, subscribe to us on youtube.com, wherever you get YouTube, and listen to our shows wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok at C Plus Comedy. Be on those platforms at Chad Black White. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.